Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Myco-Adaptogens. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create hot and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. In this episode, I have brought back a previous guest, Zoey Henderson, one of the most downloaded guests we had here on the podcast over time. And since I made the first recording with Zoe, we have also become very good friends, but also we are working on a number of projects together, which is a joy. And you can probably remember she's a force of nature, which has been busy during lockdown, developing and launching an alcohol-free beer called Fungtn, which not just is low in alcohol, but also good for you due to its brewed on mushrooms. It's very fascinating. Zoe also tells us about she right now getting ready to brew in the UK and Scandinavia, and she also gives us an overview on the no to low alcohol market and the trends that's driving this market forward fast. We also have an in-depth conversation about what you can do as an operator to boost your drink sales with a no to low drinks menu and how you can make this work with your wider menu and much, much more. The intro let me feel very excited and full of hope and energetic afterwards. As mentioned, Zoe is a force of nature. You are in for an incredible conversation. Enjoy! Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast. And in this episode, we're going to have a different conversation because we've been talking a lot about the industry and the pandemic we're in. And of course, we will touch on the pandemic. We can't not touch on the pandemic. But I actually invited a guest that was on the podcast, I think it was no more than 4 months ago, where we talked about systemic change. And it's been one of your favorites. It's the most downloaded for a very long period. So it's Zoe Henderson that is back talking about the NOLO industry and talking about a business she was brewing on before the pandemic, but actually she launched during the pandemic. And welcome again to the podcast, Zoe. And I will leave you saying the business name, but I think it's Fungtn, isn't it? The new business you're launching.
Hi, Michael. Yeah, it's great to be back with you. The business is called Fungtn. I think it's going to be an interesting talking point for people. But that's the great thing with a brand when you can own your word. So I made it up. So Fungtn, think functional drinks, and it's Fungtn.
I think we touched on it last time as well. We talked about, the change in consumer behaviors, and we talked about, the vegan trend, the plant-based trend. And then, we've been lucky and working together on other stuff like the Bear Kitchens together. And so we just gone deeper into it. And then suddenly you tell me that, now I'm launching a beer in the middle of it.
Yeah, so it's an idea that I've been brewing. I like that little pun there for a while. Obviously working within the no and low sector, reducing my alcohol consumption myself, and being quite into health and wellness and looking at how plants and different things we have in nature can help support our natural well-being. And lockdown and the kind of ceasing of any other industries that I was working in really gave me that space and that time to work on this idea. So it was a tiny positive in this sea of negatives that we're having.
And the interesting thing about your beer is not just a low alcohol beer. It's also, there's some medicinal stuff in there. And I was reading on the website, it sounds like almost it can become healthy to drink a beer.
Almost, where you have to be careful what you say these days, but certainly healthier than drinking a pint of full strength alcohol, certainly. So for me, I think we're seeing a really interesting development within the no and low category, and I'm sure we'll discuss this at length later, but people are now going beyond wanting just to remove alcohol from their drink. So it's no longer about the haves and have-nots of ABV. It's about the taste of the liquid. It's about how it makes you feel, how it fits into your social occasion, and also what additional functional benefits it can be doing to your health. I think the type of consumer that wants to stop drinking alcohol is probably open to other things, supplements, and other things that they can integrate into their daily diets that's going to help boost their immune system, their bodies, their general well-being. So I wanted to create a beer, namely a beer because I became a non-alcoholic beer drinker when I reduced my alcohol consumption, because it seemed to be the easiest non-alcoholic product to kind of fit into all occasions. So at the time, that was one of the first products that was really matching in terms of flavor profile its alcoholic counterparts. There's less questioning, you're standing in a pub with a pint of something, or you're standing at a barbecue with a bottle in your hand. There's less questioning about, oh, you're not drinking, what's that? That doesn't look like what everyone else is drinking. So beer just seemed a really seamless integration into lots of different social occasions where you wanted to be there, but you didn't want to drink alcohol. But again, I saw this market for people wanting to have a little bit more out of the products they were consuming. And that brought me into the world of functional drinks, which I think we're going to see as a really exciting future trend within the whole beverage category, but within the non-alcoholic category, especially where people are removing a substance that has a lot of negative benefits, but as many people will contest, it also has a lot of positive benefits. It can relax you, it can help you kind of get off to sleep at night, it can make you feel a bit more socially engaged. We all know that that's inside our bodies anyway. We just need certain things to help relax us and bring that out. And I think we now know that alcohol is not necessarily the best way to do that. So people are looking to different plants and herbs to put into drinks and products that can give these benefits without all the of course, negative benefits that alcohol comes along with.
I know from my own experience, being in a high pressure job, and suddenly you reflect on yourself, and this is years ago. And I think it really came to me when I became a dad as well, because the energy levels you need is insane. And I was, trying different at that point, and we're now talking 8 years ago, trying different no and low products, and all from the most commercial beer drinkers. And actually, first of all, they didn't taste very nice at that point. Also, I don't know what they put in them, but it definitely broke me down. There was something that was almost worse than normal alcohol in some kind of substitute to create this beer taste. And I think it's developed a lot since. And I drink a bit of alcohol once in a while, but again, it's a treat. It's not. It's never anymore like, oh, I can't look. I can only look forward to get alcoholic beer. And I must say that when you go to the pubs and want to have a drink out in life, or go to a supermarket. I was camping recently. I was looking for a low alcohol beer because I was out with my son and I didn't want to drink a beer. I just wanted the taste of this on a hot summer day. I couldn't find it in a local supermarket. I know it's with countryside, but still the low and no alcohol scene is still a way to go, but there is some great products out there. So yeah, so it's very interesting to see what's going on. So yeah, I definitely can connect with what you're saying there, and not putting things into your body that actually punish you in a way.
It's still in its infancy. As you were saying, 7 years ago, the marketplace was dire. It very much kind of had a little bit like the plant-based food market. You'd have a few very bland, sad-looking veggie burgers and a bit of under-seasoned quinoa, and you thought, God, is this the future? No thanks. And it was the same with non-alcoholic products. The beers used a lot of artificial flavors. They use a lot of fillers to create body and mouthfeel, which we can talk about later. When you remove the alcohol from a product, you tend to kind of lose the body and you end up with a bit of a watery liquid. And so a lot of the early beers added maltodextrin and other more artificial additives to their beers and sugars to kind of try and give it that body and make you feel like you're having a beer. And it did put a lot of people off. And even though the market is come on leaps and bounds, I mean, it's the range of products now is there. It's still obviously a tiny category, but the range is amazing. What we need to do now next is that needs to transfer down into retail and to the off trade. Obviously now it's a super sensitive time, but once we kind of get back to some kind of normality, restaurants, venues, and retail really need to start to up their game and get in step with consumer demand and get in step with where the brands are, with some really amazing best-in-class products in the non-alcoholic sector.
And as you say, that there's a growing market right now, and where do you see the market is like in 18 months time? Because I guess again, this is if you're thinking about it as a marketeer, I think you probably launched at a very strategic, smart time where a lot of people potentially have been drinking a bit too much as well during lockdown and found out this is not going to help me solve this massive challenge that's ahead of me. If you're a business owner or you, whatever you do, just being good at your job, it's not good to have days where I feel lethargic and totally out of whack and can't do anything. And also people can become very health aware and know much more about what they eat and what they put in their bodies, I guess, because they become more savvy consumers that had time to study their food and drink.
Exactly. And it's a super, it's sometimes it takes a catastrophe or a tragedy for people to actually realize something that's broke, a system that's broken, and to be able to make some positive change. And I think our food systems, we've discussed at length before, and our diets are one of those systems that really isn't working for us. And I think, it's taken a global pandemic for people to really start addressing their own personal health. And then obviously having the time, a lot of people have been at home and they've had the time to be able to sit down, research, start looking into immunity, start looking into things that they can eat to help improve their immunity, to help balance their hormones, to help manage their stress levels. And though you're right, at the start, the figures were looking quite negative that more people were drinking. What was a little bit conflicted was the fact that a lot of this data was saying, yes, retail alcohol sales are up by 40%. However, it didn't say that was because there was no on-trade. No one was going to the pubs, everyone was buying their beer from the supermarket. So yeah, there was early on, we did see people consuming more alcohol, but then a lot of the stats that are coming out of alcohol change have said that actually towards the end of this, more people are looking to reduce their alcohol consumption, and they're looking to moderate their alcohol consumption. And along with that, it given people the opportunity, as I said, retail and on-trade haven't quite caught up with the amount of amazing products that are out there. So if you are really actively wanting to reduce your alcohol, you become limited to sometimes, what's available in your supermarket or what's available in your local pub or bars that you like to go to. And so people now have switched that mindset where they're now online shoppers. Most people have got very used to ordering stuff online, very used to searching, Googling, looking at different brands. And a lot of people, to be fair, have had a real affinity for kind of shopping local and shopping small. So they may be buying stuff on Amazon because it's easier for them, but they're buying direct from small brands and from small startups. So if somebody's going, I want to find my new favorite non-alcoholic beer, they're going onto non-alcoholic alcohol wholesalers and specialist shops online, and they're searching through. Maybe they're buying a mixed box, maybe they're experimenting, and they're doing that in the comfort of their home without judgment and without people kind of questioning and without the disappointment of having to order whatever is in your local pub, and maybe it's not a very nice non-alcoholic beer, maybe it's a big brand and it's not very special. But this time that people have had has given them the opportunity to do a bit more experimenting. So I hope what we'll have is consumers coming out of this with a bit more knowledge into what's out and actually going to their local bars. Do you know what? It'd be great if you could put a non-alcoholic beer on the menu, or if they've only got one, I tried this great beer when I was in lockdown. What about getting it on the menu, or this great spirit, or whatever it has to be? So I think this has definitely changed the consumer mindset to non-alcoholic drinking, and it's opened up an opportunity for brands to interact closer with those consumers that are looking for non-alcoholic products. So I think it's created an interesting time to launch a product. And launching a non-alcoholic beer, for me, I mean, the growth within the non-alcoholic beer market seems to be growing exponentially year on year. I think it was something like 58% growth 2018 to 2019 in the UK alone. We have over 170 non-alcoholic beers, I think it is now, Europe, worldwide. And it's something that consumers are definitely looking into. I then wanted to take it a step further and tapping into the functional element of drinking and brewing with Myco-Adaptogens, which if people don't know what they are medicinal mushrooms. So they're a class of fungi that's kind of like think of it as a superfood mushroom. So it's not, even though regular mushrooms are very good for you, they're high in vitamin D and they're high in B vitamins, but it's not the portobello mushroom or the button mushroom that you get in the supermarket, nor is it the magical mushroom that you hear about people taking at parties. This is a medicinal mushroom group of fungi, and there are over about 650 medicinal mushrooms in the world that have been used in Chinese traditional medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and Eastern medicine for thousands of years. But there's a group probably of about 20 that are quite well known and are used regularly in naturopathic and homeopathic medicine, but also in a lot of medical scientific studies, we're seeing people using them as complementary therapies to other, well-known chronic diseases and illnesses that we have. So they're pretty powerful little ingredients, and they brew really well into beer. They don't taste like mushroom, which is great. They have an earthy, nutty, bitter profile, very similar to hops, and they happen to work really well as a craft beer. And another interesting side effect from our experimentation, which we're developing a first-in-class product. No one's done this before commercially. There's a few kind of quirky brewers in North America that have put them into alcoholic beers, but very much one-offs and not something that was commercially driven. As we mentioned briefly, when you remove the alcohol from a beer, if you're also trying to make a vegan beer or gluten-free beer, you're removing a lot of the starches, the gluten starches that give it body. You're then not using anything like lactose in your beer to give it more body and creaminess. So you're really stripping away things that kind of give people that traditional mouthfeel of a beer. So some people combat that by either not putting much in and you get quite a typical watery non-alcoholic beer, or you're adding in lactose for the non-vegans, or you're putting in fillers like maltodextrin. And although they don't do us any harm, it's still a synthesized filler that is adding something extra into a product that really should be 4 or 5 ingredients tops, water, hops, barley, malt, yeast. And what we found is because mushrooms are 90% polysaccharides, they're starch-based, when you're brewing them into the beer, the starches break down and you get a really nice mouthfeel. You get a creaminess to the beer, you get a body to the beer. And actually, when you drink it, it leaves that lasting flavor that you get in your mouth when you have a sip of normal beer. So that was a happy mistake of the brewing process, but it's meant that we've been able to create a top-class craft beer range. Just happens to have no alcohol, and it's vegan, gluten-free, and contains a host of other benefits, which we hope are going to help support your general immunity and well-being.
So it actually can get a bit healthier drinking that as well. I will get some time. It's an interesting thing with the mushroom, because you mentioned to me, I think it's about 4, 5, 6 weeks, 8 weeks maybe ago now, and I started going that journey myself, and I haven't gone into the world yet, but I've been studying it because I'm interested as a individual to be healthy and strong, but also understanding what's coming up front now. You need all the small hacks to get your immunity system to protect yourself against COVID, no matter what, but also just being strong enough to deal with the challenges ahead. So I think it's super interesting because I haven't seen that. You have to see CBD trend going on as well. Where does it lie with that as well? Because that's one of the trends where people say, "Oh, this is like, it's the new healthy thing, and it
Yeah.
will transform your life." And I've never really been into it because there's something that makes me resistant to do it. I don't know what it is. That's just something that triggers me. Where the mushroom, it feels for me a bit more natural. It's like they've always been here and they're part of our food diet already, and we all know it's good to eat a lot of mushroom in our food because they are full of really good things.
Yeah, CBD is very interesting. I mean, there's no doubt of the research that CBD and the cannabinoids within it, they interlock with our cannabinoid receptors that we have in our bodies naturally, and they do a lot of positive good. That said, you have to have quite high concentrations of CBD really to kind of treat anything serious. But this science is there, and the science is out that yes, there is a lot of benefit in CBD. However, we have seen an influx of so many products, from face creams to drinks to foods to alcoholic drinks to non-alcoholic drinks, putting CBD in. And what's been great is the education piece around people getting used to something unusual in their drinks, getting used to people putting plants, adaptogens, putting things into products for a health benefit. A lot of people got their head around the fact, okay, CBD is not weed. It's not cannabis that you smoke and gets you high. It's a different genus of the stevia plant. So it's a different thing. And they got their heads around that. Cool. And then they got their heads around, actually, there's some quite interesting benefits that have been reported to come out of the regular use of CBD, everything from sleep to helping muscular issues to helping fight depression. So people got their head around it. Unfortunately, it was quite a wild and unregulated space because people didn't really know what to do with it. Governments didn't really know how to categorize it. So from next year, we're going to see some quite strong legislation coming in where the CBD used in food and beverage products has to be an approved food product, and that's going to limit the amount of companies whose CBD you can use, which are traditionally North American and Eastern European hemp growers. So we're going to see a lot of products either have to have their food registered as a novel food product, which is quite expensive, or it's simply going to come off the shelves. Come in the mushrooms, like you said, they have, really well documented and scientifically studied properties that are really one of these superfood enzymes and superfood things within nature that can really help us to combat all these stresses of our natural lives. But they're just a food class. They're just classed as a food product. So, and people can get their head around eating them. And you can see them growing on trees, and they grow in old growth forests in North America and Scandinavia. And people feel more comfortable with it. Although at the same time, I think there's a bit of education, and I'm going to try and be everywhere I can talking about medicinal mushrooms and kind of breaking down those boundaries. Because when you drop that M word, people are like, oh, like mushrooms, like I put on my pizza. Is my beer going to taste like mushrooms? Or, oh, I don't know about that. I hear about people going crazy and jumping off buildings when they meet them. I was like, no, it's not that. And then, there's lots of even scientific research coming out with London College and Carhart Harris and the team that are actually now using psilocybin, which are psychedelic mushrooms, as a treatment for depression. And there's big medical studies that are happening in King's College London at the moment, and John Hopkins over in the States, that actually we might be seeing psilocybin, which are the psychoactive mushrooms, being brought back in as a bona fide and legal treatment for depression. So the whole world of mushrooms is opening up now, and I think there's lots more really interesting information happening about it. And I'm not quite sure why we're seeing people, there's quite a few brands that are making tinctures and supplements, and people are putting in coffee, and there's some really other interesting non-alcoholic brands that are distilling spirits with them, but nobody's kind of made that link into beer, which I feel they just have a really natural fit. So I'm excited to get it out to the world.
You use them yourself. It's not like you just created a product because you thought that this would be a great marketing stunt. You really believe in this. As people can hear, you are very knowledgeable about what you're doing and about the mushroom. You've been on the journey there. It's not something that just came in one day.
I mean, it's also a little bit selfish, I think it comes at the best products seem to be created by people that couldn't find what they wanted. And it's like, I've been taking medicinal mushrooms and supplements for probably about 6-7 years now. I came across them in the States, and I ordered, the powders online, and I put them in my coffee in the morning. And I do feel, and some people might say, oh, it's placebo, or but there are studies that back this up, that, I've had awful memories since a child. I find it quite difficult to concentrate. And I've been an entrepreneur. That's difficult when you've got a million things happening in your brain at once. But I've been taking lion's mane mushroom now for like about 4 years every day in my coffee. I've also been taking chaga. I had quite bad allergies as a child. And I've noticed my memory and my focus improve greatly. I've noticed my allergies and my hypersensitivity go down a lot. I can't remember the last time I was ill. And now I've stopped drinking. And probably the last time I was ill was on a hangover. And I can't remember the last time I was ill. And I feel great. I feel my body feels really good. My running, my kind of ability to focus, my sleep. And the one thing I've changed and made it consistent in my life, as well as just eating plants, has been to be taking religiously these mushrooms. And so I wanted to have something. I wanted to create another kind of platform to getting into people's diet. I want people to know more about these amazing products, because I believe that nature has put everything that we need on this planet to give us the helping hands that we need. She's a kind mother. We've just kind of lost touch with all the amazing plants and fungi and their benefits, but they're out there, and the studies are out there, and the ancient texts and the ancient medicines have been using them for a long time. And I think there's now a real opportunity to take ancient wisdom and bring it back into our modern day ceremony, because we live a hectic life. We're putting all these extra stresses in our bodies that are making us immunocompromised. We're living on adrenaline fatigue. We're working later than normal. We're eating strange foods. We're introducing toxins into our bodies that just weren't there 50, 100, 200 years ago. And so finding little, like you said, biohacks, finding these things that we can integrate without any great weird diversion from our regular activities. So whether that's putting something in your coffee, putting something into your beers, putting something into your food that you eat every day, our food, as we both know, the power for change is in what you eat and consume, and you can make a difference 3, 4, 5 times a day every time you put something into your mouth. And you can actively change your health. And I think now we understand we're having a global pandemic because of food systems, and we are, the data in the States and worldwide is people who are really suffering from this awful pandemic are people who have pre-existing health problems, or people who are obese, people who have diabetes, people who have heart conditions. So let's try and make sure that we grow generations of people that aren't getting these chronic diseases that are really avoidable via our lifestyle choices. And if we can do that by harnessing these wonderful little things that we have in nature's herbs, plants, fungi, and integrating them into our diets and really looking at what we're eating and trying to eliminate as many toxins as possible, that's going to go a long way to helping us combat and protect ourselves against whatever else is going to spring up in in the world in the next couple of 100 years.
Yeah, and I think it should be so obvious, but this is maybe like the wake up call many people needed to do to take this, change into their daily habits. But one of the things that also there's another element in putting the right things in your body is also that if we don't start to use Mother Earth in the right way, there will be other challenges as climate change go on and so on. And I know that drink is probably not going to change the world, but again, it's another little thing you can introduce into your diet that actually is going to take this in the right direction. It's all the small things you do for yourself will actually have a positive impact. What's good for you is good for the planet, I normally say. Funny enough.
We forget that we live in a very individualistic society. We forget that it's the collective that really makes change. And, I don't believe that one person and one product or one miracle cure, which doesn't exist, is going to change the world. It's the little collective actions of lots of people coming together and trying to reframe this social, cultural reality that we have that isn't doing us any good. So whether it be people trying to go, oh, I'm actually going to not drink alcohol and I want a different alternative. Oh, I actually, read about the benefits of medicinal mushrooms. I want to integrate them into my diet. I love beer. Brilliant. And that's just one of the change. And once somebody starts to look into that, then they'll start to go, oh, okay, well, I want to make sure that everything that I'm eating and drinking has got a benefit. I want to make sure it's all sustainably sourced from good soil practices. I want to make sure that it's all, plant-based, whole grain foods. I want to make sure if I do eat any meat products that it's, organic and ethically sourced, if that is possible. But it's all about that mindset of people really becoming a conscious consumer. And what I like to try, what I'm going to try and talk about more is this thing called positive wellness. And wellness is banded around a lot. There's lots of leggings flying everywhere and yoga and all of that jazz. And it has become a bit of a fad. But actually what's underneath that is I want to see this positive wellness where it's like you're actually doing something good. You're not just putting on your leggings and walking around the supermarket. You're actually actively trying to do something that's going to help you and your body and your body's ability to function at its best. Because our bodies are amazing. They're amazing tools and they have the ability to fight off a lot of stuff. But the problem is we then put in a load of other things that decrease their ability to be able to function. So it's not about adding things to your body, artificially, synthetically boosting stuff. We've got a team of bouncers inside us that are protecting the club, protecting our immune, driving our immune system forward. We don't need 10 more bouncers. We just need the bouncers that we have to be stronger and to be able to defend us better. And that is where adaptogens and natural food healing comes in. It's about empowering and supporting your natural immunity, helping your body fight stuff at its best, and doing it in a way that's not suddenly going to give you some kind of either toxicity if you have too much of it, or some kind of chemical come down when you stop taking whatever it is that you are, and then puts you at a deficit. It's about keeping a natural balance of homeostasis, and that's what adaptogens do. And they've been working in Ayurvedic and Chinese and Eastern and folk medicine since the beginning of time for these properties. You probably have a lot of Ayurvedic stuff in your Ayurvedic adaptogens in your diet every day, and you don't know. Ginger, turmeric, there are certain things that have chemical compounds within them that are just that little bit better than normal products. They're kind of like the superfoods, and the adaptogens are definitely the elite superfoods that we have on this planet.
interesting, because we left it a bit before, but coming back to, the post-pandemic, the new now, whatever they call, and people probably will be looking for less alcohol also in the workplace and so on. I could even imagine there's workplaces where they will ban alcohol totally, because of many reasons, not only because of a health reason, but also because religious reasons and diversity. There's been a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion during the pandemic because of massive events happening in the US and so on, Black Lives Matters and so on. So I guess, again, all these movements are just pushing, alcohol maybe from, they're still probably contending on the top of the league. But I guess that low alcohol or non-alcoholic drinks are really catching up with alcohol in so many public places where we normally would be.
They are, and you think of those places, having alcohol in the workplace. That seems crazy, crazy anyway. A lot of workplaces have, when you sign up in HR, you're not allowed to be drunk in work. You're not allowed to take, chemical substances, what have you. But yet, work events still actively encourage you to drink alcohol. They actively encourage work drinks. Friday afternoon, people come around, the pints come around the office, or you all go to the pub, or work events, socializing with clients. Alcohol is the main driver behind that. And it's crazy because we make bad decisions when we're drinking alcohol. After a certain point, we say things and we act a bit silly, and we do things that definitely aren't beneficial to the work environment. And I think you're right. It's one of those interesting industries where, like smoking, that it's highly taxable. There's a lot of revenue that's made from alcohol in the industries that it supports. And so even though the data is coming out, even though the science is coming out, it's really bad for you. It's a toxin. And if you carry on drinking it, it will kill you. You will get cirrhosis of the liver. And that sounds a bit dramatic because, of course, people can drink alcohol and not become alcoholics. However, look at all the other toxins and stresses that we do to our body. Is it really necessary to wake up? When you wake up with that hangover that's pounding in your head, that's toxicity. That's poisoning. That's your body trying to do everything it can to flush something out of your system. And I think that people are becoming more aware of that. And I think companies are becoming more aware of it. And it's all down to the consumer. So even though big industry, big governments, everything's geared towards alcohol and the revenue that comes from that, as was smoking. And people fought and pushed back on the science for a long time with smoking, as they do with eating lots of factory farmed red meat and dairy. They're still pushing back on it. They're still trying to make you feel like it's okay because it's something we've always done. But the data and the science is coming out saying it's not okay. And alcohol is going to go the same way. And what we can do as consumers and as entrepreneurs is create those brands and create that future. And share that future by predicting the long game of what's going to happen and going, right, well, let's just make the best products that we can. Let's make the best options. Venues need to create the best menus that give people choice. So, you're creating that ability for consumers to vote with their forks and vote with their wallets. And if there are amazing alcohol-free options, there was a study that came out of Bristol University only a few months ago that actually the more good quality alcohol-free options that are there, the more people will choose them. And then people go, oh, no one ever orders the one alcoholic beer I've got dusty sitting in the bottom of the bottle fridge. Yes, because nobody really knows about it. But if you had 4 or 5 beers and a little display on the bar and a separate section, and a section in the menu, then people would order it. So it's people, we're now getting up to creating the products that give consumers a choice. That's great. And now as consumers, we need to be able to have access to that. And then we need to start voting with our wallets, and we need to start buying those products and creating that market and make it a viable option for venues to have 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% non-alcoholic wet-led menus. Because traditionally it's not been affordable to do the non-alcoholic options because it was a Coca-Cola, and we all know the margins on a whiskey and Coke is much better than a Coca-Cola on its own. But now we have the products to go, you can have some really amazing, sophisticated non-alcoholic drinks. And actually people are willing to pay pretty much the same price now because they realize that the thing that does you the most harm and the thing that is actually the cheapest in your drink is the alcohol, which is crazy. And that's the thing that people were attributing the most value to. Luckily, slowly that's changing. And as consumers and venues kind of step up to that challenge, I think we'll see it becoming normalized, and we'll see that weird culture around drinking and the kind of the positive rhetoric around drinking that's been displayed in our culture for a long time, and we're actually starting to say, it's okay not to drink. It's pretty cool not to drink, actually. It's pretty cool not to be hungover or be that person that we're a party that says something really inappropriate or, was found being sick in the bushes outside. Nobody wants to be that person anymore. And it's not cool. And people aren't going, oh, yeah, she had a great time. She was really drunk. People are like, oh, God, that was so embarrassing. She must feel like death today. And so times are changing. And it's down to us all to try and help push that movement forward. But it's positive because I've seen it happen in the vegan space before my own eyes. We've gone from one dusty soya milk on the shelves in the supermarket to like over 20 different variants of non-dairy milks. So we've seen that as customer demand has grown and products have matched them. We've seen that growth and development. So I'm really confident that the same is going to happen in the no-low space as well.
Yeah, and I think I talked with a couple of other people in general about the consumer, the savvy new consumer that really will, and I believe this deeply, and I think they're already showing it, they will vote with their food dollars, as I call them. And I think you can already see it during the pandemic where people started shopping more locally. I talked with my local wine shop the other day because I know we had this conversation, and the reason why the conversation came is that because I know I can go and get my lower alcohol beer there I want on a very hot day, summer day. I still have that urge to have that beer sometimes. And he was sold out. And normally he has the very good beer brands like the Small Brew Company. He has Big Drop. He has Lucky Saint. And he said, I'm sold out. Like, it's changed over in the beginning of the pandemic. I bought home of everything, and I couldn't sell any non-alcoholic because something happened there apparently, because people just needed to get rid of the stress that they thought alcohol would do it. He said, now I can't keep up with stuff because people have tried it as well, because he's actually been pushing it, because I noticed he had it because he was pushing, as you said. He was like trying to do an effort. So now he's become a bit known for that. And actually, funny enough, I've seen some of the neighbors buying that as well, because one of the neighbors tried my Lucky Saint. It tastes like beer. Yeah, it tastes like beer. I said, perfectly great beer, I said. But you don't have the negative side effects, even if you get one. Because I think I had a pint of beer about Christmas time, and I hadn't had a beer since, I think, January the year before, the same year. I felt absolutely wrecked. 1 pint.
Yeah.
That's how much toxic there is in that.
It's the next day. It's the feeling exhaustion and the feeling tired. And you might not feel pissed drinking it, but you feel that something isn't quite right. And I think you mentioned an interesting thing there, that he's got really well known for educating people. And that's the thing. We've got a new category, and it's a responsibility of the brands to support the venues and the on and off trade, but also for retailers and bar people and venues to actually kind of actively educate consumers. So having really cool, you don't even have to have, either people have separate non-alcoholic menus, or you have it integrated into your normal menu. Maybe drinks are listed by ABV. So, you just go down the list, and some says 6.5, some says 0, some says 0.5. And so people are just choosing on what they fancy for the drink, but it's quite clear if it has alcohol in or not. And then brands, sampling, educating. We've all got really used to Zooming now and doing things digitally. So there's never any excuse that you can't do digital training and get together quite easily. Then head bartenders and off-license owners and brands can do little introductions and tell them about their brand, tell them about how to serve it, tell them what suggestions to have for customers. So education is a really important piece around all of this to kind of get people involved, inspired, and excited. And like you said, when people taste it, they're like, oh, that actually tastes like non-alcoholic beer. Some people are still so stubborn that they're like, oh, I don't even want to taste it. I don't even want to taste it. And then they taste it and they go, oh yeah, that Moving Mountains burger actually does taste like some beef burger. And oh, that beer, yeah, it tastes exactly like my beer. And actually, or sometimes people prefer the taste. And they're like, oh, that's great. Okay, cool. So actually what I really like about beer isn't the alcohol. It's all these different, these flavors. And I think that's what where we've come a bit off piste, is that we have been made to feel, and ourselves have felt, that what we really like in our wine, in our beer and everything is the taste of the alcohol. And yes, sometimes it is, of course, but to some people they're like, oh, actually what I really love in rum is the vanilla and the spice, and I've actually now found a non-alcoholic rum that gives me all of that. Or I really love the bitter sweetness of hops, and I really love an IPA. And actually I love the flavor of IPA. I don't like the alcohol. And so the more people try stuff and the more that brands and venues and consumers come together to interact, the better. And that's how the market is going to grow, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that thing that hacks your brain in a way, the taste, the hunger for some kind of thing, the comfort. I guess it is a lot of it. I totally agree with you. And I've actually decided I'll probably still drink some alcohol once in a while, but I actually don't have the urge anymore. There's
No,
no urge because I've actually somehow unconscious, without going on a mission, say I didn't want to drink anymore. I just had a period in my life where it didn't work with having a beer because it was just the consequences of that was too big. And then I'm just slowly gone away from it. I actually don't know if I'm gonna go back. I haven't made like a principled decision. I don't think a lot of people has been starting drinking less alcohol. Some of them is more conscious than others, but a lot of them is just happening slowly as they push up their exercise, push up their diet, and so on. And it just comes together as a natural to start looking at this as well.
yeah, and I think that's the best way. We've got to be gentle on ourselves here. Unless you are severely alcohol dependent to the point of damaging your health and you're going through an AA program, that's a completely different thing. But if you're just someone who goes, I've got kids, I've got a busy job, maybe I'm putting on a bit of weight, my skin's bad, and you just like, oh, I really just want to knock alcohol on the head. Let's be kind with ourselves. Let's not put any pressure and then tell everyone, right, I'm not drinking. And then when you slip up, or you want a little sip, you then are left with all these feelings of guilt and failure. And that's really not productive to anyone's kind of life journey. I think you're doing it the right way. And it's the way that I did it, where I just went, I'm going to save my alcohol points. I don't want to drink a warm glass of white wine in a plastic cup outside a pub. But if I'm going to someone's house for a really lovely dinner and they bring out a beautiful wine, I might have a little glass for dinner. I don't need to have those couple of glasses of wine at night just sitting watching the telly, or if I'm meeting somebody on a Wednesday after work. But what we've managed to do is it's all about the ceremony and it's all about the social occasion. And I think where people feel like the thought of not drinking alcohol, because it's so complicated and packaged up with our social ceremony, people go, oh, but that means I can't go out and see my friends in the pub on a Wednesday, or I can't go to that club, or I can't go to that work dinner because, what am I going to do? Then once you start to look at these social occasions individually and actually then remove the alcohol and go, well, if I've got something that gives me that same kind of social ceremonies, I've got those non-alcoholic beers for the barbecue, and I found a really nice sparkling prosecco that I can take to parties or what have you, and my work now actually do a few nice non-alcoholic drinks when we have functions. Then suddenly you're like, okay, I can still turn up at these events, I can still be me and have fun. Maybe I don't stay out till 4 o'clock in the morning, but let's be honest, nothing productive happens after 11:30 at night anyway, really. And if it does, you can't remember it. So it's like, maybe you do go home a little bit earlier, or, maybe you're not the last person standing, but that's perfectly okay. And I think once you find things to help replace the alcohol and social occasions, that makes it feel a lot more manageable. And you're like, cool, I can still go out and do all the things I used to do. I can just wake up at 8 o'clock the next morning and get on with my life.
Yeah, and I think that's it, is the disruption it gives in your life as well as especially as if you are a business owner and you get more responsibility. I think actually that will be also for leaders that has massive responsibilities in these times and always have had, but it's now or never for many businesses. I think this is a very good option because it gives you that satisfaction from a psychology point of view. It makes you relax because you get the taste. I think that's the trigger, and that's what I found out. I actually don't need the alcohol sometimes we all need a drink to relax because it's just absolutely mental. And there's people pulling in you for everywhere, and everybody wants things to happen yesterday. And I think this is a great way to go. I can only see, as all the things you're saying, it's gonna be growing exponential over the years to come. And I think that even especially business people are getting in more and more aware about how they take care of their bodies, and that's why I hear from everyone I meet and work with as well.
It's funny what you said, how it's that, and we've all done it, that little whiskey or that glass of wine after work, because actually what that's doing is, once you've had that glass of wine, can't be asked checking that email, and you're like, you can just wait till tomorrow. Well, normally the kind of the personality driver in you, if you are a leader, if you're an entrepreneur, is that if you're not doing something, you get those feelings of guilt and you get those feelings of, I could be doing, because every single second that I'm doing something, it's contributing more, and you get those feelings. And once you've had a couple of beers or a glass of wine, you're like, nah, can't be bothered with that. And, that's a way that you shut off. But then what we have to learn is we can't hack life like that by wanting to kind of like block what's going on, or even, had a long day with the kids. It's not healthy to try and block out what's going on in your brain. What you need to do is you do need to crack something and sit down and breathe and talk to your partner and watch a movie and relax. And we have to learn how to make our brains quieten down without numbing it with a toxin. Some people turn to drugs, some people turn to alcohol. We have to learn how to do it without these substances. And that's asking us to do a bit of work. And that's calling on us to kind of pull something out the bag. And humans are naturally lazy. We like to take the quick path to the reward. We don't naturally like to go all around the houses. But unfortunately, for the future of our health and for the planet, we're now realizing we've got to take that long road, and we've got to take that journey. We've got to actually do the work ourselves to make these differences, because we can't keep doing these quick fixes. And alcohol's the same thing. So I find once I've got, I sit down and I turn off the laptop and I put my phone away and I go, right, it's 8 o'clock now. This is perfectly reasonable not to do any work until the morning. And I have a non-alcoholic beer, or, I have something really nice to eat, or, I put a movie on. Or then, there's other things, there's meditation, there's exercises. We have to now dig deep and learn what other things can we do to relax at the end of the day. And also as entrepreneurs and leaders, I think we all have to come together and learn to get away from this Wolf of Wall Street, mad 80 work mentality, where it's like, if you didn't pull in 16-hour days, and if you didn't, if you're not working till 10 o'clock at night and up at 5 a.m., you're somehow failing. That's an awful, very capitalist, money-driven way of working, and it is not good for our bodies. It's causing us diseases and illnesses that are really hampering us. So we all have to learn to create another new system. We love creating systems, don't we? We have to create another new system that really puts wellness and people's mental health and how their food and drink affects that in the real kind of top importance of leadership, and how we lead people and how companies create culture. And that culture is around taking time to rest. You shouldn't get to the point where you get home from work and you're just like, oh, I just need to have a bottle of wine to just block this out. We shouldn't be creating cultures that drive that. We should be creating an environment, creating businesses, and creating systems that mean that people are ready just to relax at the end of the day. They feel okay turning their phone off. They feel okay going, I'm having a digital free weekend, guys. Contact me on Monday, and not have the guilt that is associated with that. And this is a really important thing, I think, for business. And along with the consumer wellness market that's growing from a business side, this is what we have to do as leaders and influencers. We have to create environments where people don't feel like they need to reach for an alcohol or whatever else, whatever other drugs they feel they need to reach for to make themselves feel better. We don't want to create that culture. We want something different.
Yeah, it's super interesting. As you just say, there's a couple of things I just want to take out of what you said there. There's a learning I've done myself the last 12 months, and and right now during the pandemic, I started reading a book that's called Why We Sleep, because sleep again becomes very important as well. Because when you drink too much alcohol, you can't sleep. That's one fact. But it's a great book, and if people haven't read it, I would say start reading it, because suddenly you find out something you can hack very easily is your sleep pattern as well. And you say that there's this drive of the Wolf of Wall Street to get up 5 o'clock, go to bed at 12, finishing your day, and then get up at 5 so you're ahead of everyone. Yeah, and some there are times you need to get up at 5 because the business, this is where the business is, that's what the demand. But then you just have to make sure you got early to bed, and that's the only thing I'm saying. Like, how can you actually make sure you also get your sleep, and because sleep, I found out when you talk about wellness. Definitely for myself, it's like it's triggered some energy levels I didn't think I had, just because because you rebuild your brain again, and all those things that happens during the night, and it's difficult because there's so much you want to put into the day if it's not your hobby, your activities, your kids and stuff like that, and really force you to prioritize the right things.
We have to be kind to ourselves. Yeah, we have to be kind, and we have to go, you can't do everything in a day, and that's okay. And if we stand up together as industries and as collectives and go, it's okay to work an 8-hour day, and then stop and then have your own personal life. And it's okay to work a 4-hour day if that works for you, if you get what you need done, and then you want to have, family time in the afternoon. And I think we need to readdress that whole working system, because sleep is so important. And sleep is the one thing, your body's very busy doing lots of things during the day. And when you sleep and you rest and you get some deep REM sleep, that's when all the it's like road work. You can't do road work. Well, they do, don't they? But you can't do road works and repair a road when there's cars on it in the day. So you've got to wait till no one's on the road and then you fix stuff. Well, your body fixes stuff when you sleep. You're not digesting food. So your stomach, where you create a lot of your hormones, you create brain hormones, things like serotonin are created in your guts. You need to have this time when there's nothing going on in your body, that you can create hormones, you can repair cells. And especially if your liver's processing a load of toxins, then it can't be regenerating and it can't be processing the natural hormones it does to help other functions of your body. So really getting good, solid sleep that's not inhibited by toxins or a big belly full of some really indigestible processed food that you've eaten on the sofa at 10 a.m. That really makes a huge difference to how you wake up in the morning. And you literally can wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You literally can wake up feeling like you've been hit by a bulldozer. And it shouldn't be like that. That's not how we should exist.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We got a bit distracted, as we often do our conversation. So, but I'll just take it back to say, where are you and Fungtn in 8 months' time from now? What is the plan? What is the roadmap? Because you're launching very soon. It's on the shelves and people can start buying it from your website and so on. We'll come back to that in a second. But what is the journey? What is the roadmap now?
So I'm launching end of the month. And for me, I'm wanting to do a bit of call it deep game framing. You're basically looking at the real ethos of what I want to do for the business, where I want to take it, and what is the overall message. What am I trying to do with Fungtn? And to me, it's getting people to integrate more positive wellness into their diet. It's getting people to really be conscious consumers of what they're putting into their bodies. And I want to create a brand that is, it's a global brand that's drunk globally, but it's brewed locally. So there are certain things that are really important to me. Creating a sustainable business. My aspirations is to be B Corp registered in 8 months' time. By the time we get settled down with our brewery and we can start putting systems into place, but owning and operating a sustainable business and creating that framework from the start is really important. I also want to, I'm brewing with independent brewers in the UK, but then I want to brew externally. So I'm looking to be brewing in Copenhagen, actually by the end of the year, which will service Scandinavia. And then towards the end of next year, Australia, New Zealand, and 2022, Canada. Looking at creating these little pockets of brand ambassadors, because non-alcoholic and, functional drinks, adaptogenic drinks, they still are a little bit niche. So, but I know that once people get on board with it, they'll love it and it will create some really strong brand ambassadors. So I think by working with partner breweries in the countries that you sell, one, puts money back into the local economies. Two, there's less shipping around the world. And you can create, really engaged people that love your brand and love what you're doing, rather than just working with big distributors who are importing and exporting your product. And I'm sure I will work with them as well. But I really want to have little hubs dotted around the world that are brewing it. And my vision behind what I want to do, and already how I've been talking about it, I've had people in Australia and New Zealand already show a lot of interest in wanting to get it over there, and in North America as well. So I'm really excited that actually we've hit on something that's going to strike a chord with a lot of people. So I'm quite an impatient person, and the traditional ways of doing business are, you start your brand and, you establish it for a couple of years and you get that traction. And I want to quite quickly be brewing lots of different countries and start these little micro pockets. And I want to do things a little bit differently. I want to be more sustainable, and I want to ensure that people are really buying into what we're trying to do. So it's going to be quite disruptive, and no doubt there'll be things that don't work, but no doubt there'll be things that I hope are going to work. And I'm quite a stubborn person, and the beauty of being a solo founder, although there are many benefits to having a partner, is the fact that it's just me. So I sit in my board meeting with myself and I say, are we going to do this? And I say, yes. And then we're going to do it. And then we can just start doing it the next day.
Yeah, that's definitely an advantage. I can tell you that from my own experience. But yeah, it's good always to have a partner in crime when there's always something you're not good at yourself. I'm very aware about that. But where can people find more about Fungtn and the beer, and where can they order it when we get to that?
So you can head to our website, fungtn.com. Now, Fungtn, this is going to be, interesting. Fungtn, think of functional, but we're spelling it FUNGTN, so an abbreviation of functional. Fungtn.com, we're going to be selling through our web shop. Obviously, the world's in a weird place. Normally when you launch a product, especially something you want to sell on trade, you go through bar to bar, you've got your men on the ground, your sales team, you're going into bars and restaurants, you're getting on with big on-trade wholesalers, and you kind of, that's the normal route to market. Obviously, that's flipped on its head, and I'm totally aware of all my friends in the on-trade of how sensitive it is right now, and I think everyone just needs to get back, if even they can get back to normal trade, and I don't want to be sending off people and going into bars and kind of hustling people right now. So I'm focusing on direct to consumer, which is also really interesting because I can build up a close relationship with my consumers. I can have more control, and actually I think would be better to get some kind of case studies and feedback from in the first couple of brews. So you can buy it through my web shop. And I'm also in talks with a couple of independent online non-alcoholic specific retailers and craft beer wholesalers. And then, of course, I would be interested in getting into some larger retail as well. So I'll be sure to be knocking on their doors as well. But end of the month, you can be going to fungtn.com and buying from our web shop.
Great. We'll look forward to that. And the last question, because we are the Hospitality Maverick podcast, and we're very aware it's always good to get something tangible away from a podcast episode, especially for leaders out there that are, right now, if we take the hospitality on trade or the trade industry, they're trying to bounce back, trying to find way to grow businesses. And there's no doubt about there is opportunity within drinks as people start to go out and drink more, and potentially low alcohol drinks is a very big growth opportunity if you run a bar or a restaurant where people can buy this together with their meal. What would be your very specific question here? What would be your top three sales advice to them if they wanted to implement no and low alcohol drinks? Because you have not just experience from this, but from many other things you've done. What is the trick to get this selling?
I think it's about education. I know that most of the brands, all of the brands in the no space, are really keen to help support venues in educating their consumers. That could be point of sale material, that could be coming in and doing staff training days, that could be coming in doing sampling, that could be helping you develop cocktails and drinks lists. So always talk to the brands. The brands that the non-alcoholic brands that come into market now are all really keen to help support and educate customers. So educate your customers. That also means get your menus in order. So no longer having the dusty non-alcoholic section at the back of the menu, past the softs, past the coffee. It needs to be front of stage, and your non-alcoholic drinks need to sit right under the alcoholic drinks. So when you list your beers, at the end, list your non-alcoholic beers, and put that it's non-alcoholic. Under your wines, if you've got a sparkling non-alcoholic wine, list that you've got it there. Don't have it in a separate section. So you've got to make it easy for customers to make that choice. And if someone does order a Coca-Cola or a fruit juice, just say, oh, you're not drinking tonight. You do know we've got a range of non-alcoholic beers and cocktails. And they might go, oh, didn't even see that bit in the menu. Maybe they didn't even look at the menu. They just went straight to the bar and might have a Coca-Cola. So I think it's important for bar teams and bar staff to be educated in the fact that you do now have great non-alcoholic options. And they are available, and putting them into the forefront of the consumer's mind. Because let's be honest, if a consumer buys a non-alcoholic beer that you've got there for £4, you're making a better margin than if they're just having a glass of Coke, or heaven forbid that soda and lime that causes constant, should you even charge them for it? So you might be buying soda and lime and your bar staff might not even be charging them. So you're missing out on potential sales there. So for me, education of the consumer is really important. Secondly, I think creating menus that integrating more drinks. So do your research. There are some really great non-alcoholic wholesalers now, but there are also really all the big wine merchants, spirit merchants do have great non-alcoholic lists now. So ask your local rep to come and bring your non-alcoholic range. Most of them are working with consultants, or they're working with people to kind of really develop their non-alcoholic range. So call your local rep and say, right, can we arrange a time for you to come in? I want to see all your non-alcoholic options. What can you recommend to me? And then really, get your team involved as well, of trying stuff and putting new exciting stuff on the menus. And the wholesalers do have it, but again, unless people start demanding it, then this market isn't going to grow. So wholesalers, again, are going to be more than happy if you're going to increase your range with them and buy more stuff. So yeah, get your rep to come in and take you through what non-alcoholic options there are. Then, of course, there's some really great community groups, if you like, and organizations that are really trying to push the non-alcoholic and no-low space. I mean, Club Soda is amazing, run by the powerhouse Laura Willoughby, who's been pushing the non-alcoholic agenda for a long time now. And they've just created a training program for venues to train them on non-alcoholic drinks, how to serve them, how to approach customers, how to pair them with foods. Pairing with foods is really interesting. If you're in a kind of higher class venue that pairs foods, or even a cool craft beer tavern where you're pairing your foods with certain beers, pair non-alcoholic options as well. If you're doing set menus that have set menus with alcohol, you lose a huge bit of revenue if somebody says, I want the set menu, but we don't drink, so we'll just buy a drink separately. Do a non-alcoholic pairing menu as well, and showcase that. Put a really lovely non-alcoholic cocktail on, put a great sparkling non-alcoholic wine on there, and they'll go, yeah, right. And they'll end up spending probably about the same amount of money that they were going to with the alcohol. And you've still got them in, you've still made them feel special. And, as really importantly right now, you still got that revenue turning over.
That was any more?
I think that's it. It's education, education, education. Yeah, because the products are there now. Before we had the excuse going, well, there wasn't really any, what am I going to serve people? There's nothing, what am I going to make a non-alcoholic menu out of? There's nothing on there. But they're there now. And one more thing to add, if you are passionate about serving non-alcoholic drinks in your venue, and your wholesaler doesn't have the products that you need, go to the brands direct. Talk to them, do research. That's the amazing thing. We're now online. You can go on independent online wholesalers and retail sellers, and you can see all the amazing drinks you have. Create your own list. Then go to your wine merchant, go to your big drinks provider and say, hey, I found this is what I'd like to put on my menu, and I've spoken to the brands and they're really keen, can you list them? So again, it's in the power of the consumer and the power of the client being the bar or the venue. So tell your rep, what I want to see on my non-alcoholic menu, and I've got these brands, and the brands are all really excited to join you, and we want to put them on our menu, because nobody wants to get in 10 new suppliers ordering direct. But it's a general manager's nightmare. Like, ideally you want to be getting from your familiar wholesalers, just to keep everything less complicated. So don't be afraid to create your menu with the products you want, and then take it to your reps and say, this is what I want to see on the menu. And if you can't do it, then I might go to your competitor, and that'll keep everyone on their toes.
Yeah, and I think also it's now that this is the time to experiment as well. With the consumer is more open to it as well. You can change your menu, you can adapt your menu, make sure that the food as well as the opportunities. Just if we don't talk low and no alcohol, I've seen and worked with restaurant for years, is sometimes how they actually forget to integrate their drinks. It's just a copy page of what their competitors do. So that could be on the coffee, it could be on the soft drinks, it could be also on the beers. They haven't thought through why they choose the beers they did. They just took the most they thought was the most famous one, or it was easy to say yes to that, or they got most contribution from there. But yeah, it has to be integrated, and again, it has to fit with your ethos and values around how you want to do things. It's so important that when you do things, you really think that through, because there's so much money to be made on the drinks bit, and I think that's going to be the easy upsell in this environment we go into than anything else, because we still want to go out and have a little treat, and if we can, it's not always we want to just order a meal, but maybe we just want a drink, and that's definitely a market to tap into.
People want to feel special, and there's a huge market for differentiation, and whether it's like adding on another sales point in your already existing offering, or, creating a whole new space. People like going out for something. It might not be a full meal. That could be just financial reasons, time reasons. It could be just a drink. And if you're past the morning, having that coffee and tea, it's like, what do you then do in the afternoon when you don't want a beer, but you don't want to go for some food? It's like, well, if you can go to a bar and have a few non-alcoholic beers, or you can go to a restaurant and have a nice non-alcoholic cocktail, sit at the bar, feel special, feel like you're getting out the house or getting out the office. There's a real market to tap into there. And just expecting alcohol to kind of just be that easy revenue stream that you add on and you just put anything on the menu is going to be a thing of the past now, because consumers are still going to be quite nervous about going out. And when you do go out, it's got to be good and it's got to be special. And you've got to feel like there's been care and attention and thought put into the offering and the way it's been delivered. And putting on more great beverages, whether they have alcohol or not, and creating your menus around great quality products, then that to me is a point of differentiation of how brands are going to make it through this difficult time, for sure.
Absolutely amazing, Zoe. As always, super insights from you and a lot of new learnings when it comes to the no and low alcohol market and what mushrooms can do to boost your health. Also, especially the knowledge you shared around how no and low drinks can boost your sales. If you'd like to get inspired by another business which is also making massive progress when it comes to the no and low alcohol market, please tune in to our episode 47, Building a Brewing Company with Rob Fink, who is the CEO and founder at the Big Drop Brewing Company. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, rate, or subscribe to one of our channels. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and subscribe to our community and download free leadership tools at hospitalitymavericks.com. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.